Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today, I just wanted to talk about my experience of the past week and what happened this past week was that I was committing sin and I found myself apologizing to God and saying I'm sorry and just constantly like apologizing, just knowing that what I was doing was wrong. And while I was doing that, I looked at myself and I just saw that the behaviors and the tendencies and the mannerisms that I was displaying were so much similar to somebody who's addicted to drugs. You get people who are addicted to drugs and they swear that they're going to change their life around. They can promise you the world, they can apologize, and because drugs are so addictive and they grab a hold of people in such a terrible way, like people end up relapsing. They end up doing the very things that they didn't set out to do. And it can become tiring towards people. It can be something that breaks people down. It can become something that tears families apart because of the way in which, people say they're going to change their lives, but then they don't. And I found myself looking the very same way. I said I was going to stop sinning. I said I was going to let go of those things. I apologize to God. I make promises to God. I tell God that I'm going to change, and then I don't end up doing that. And I got to a point where I was like, yo, I felt so hopeless. And I just felt like, what's the point? Like, I felt like I I just felt so bad about the things that I was doing, and I felt like giving up on myself, and I felt like there was no hope. And I came across this video of a young boy who just shared so many images and videos of his mother and his siblings and himself. And he said his one wish was for his mother to change his ways. So his wish was for his mother to change her habits, for his mother to change her ways, because he knew that what it wasn't necessarily something wrong with his mom. It was her habits that were causing her to act this way. It was her habits that were causing them to lose out on memories, or for their memories to be tainted with the memory of them having to see their mother, you understand, like in a bad situation because of drugs. And that's what sin is doing in our lives. Committing a sin is like doing drugs. You are basically indulging in in something that is morally against God because you want a temporary fix, because you want some form of satisfaction that isn't even gonna last, because that is what sin leads to and that's what sin is. So you can lie for now, but it's only for you to cover up what you know to be the truth in certain situations. So you could steal, and it's only, serving you in that moment, but ultimately it's robbing somebody else, and it's not solving the problem that you're actually going through. You might have a lustful indulgence. You might be tempted to do things that you're not supposed to be doing, and then ultimately it can lead to destruction. You might be acting out of anger, and that very same anger could be false, it could be unprovoked, it could be under false pretenses, it could not even be a real underlying reason that your anger is being warranted. But because of that, it leads you to commit sin and to actions that could be devastating towards your entire life. And that's what drugs does. It started out for some people in a small way where, like, okay, cool, They just with their friends and they just do one thing and it leads to the next. But then now you see people fast forward 10 years later where it's like they literally are living and dying just to get that drug. It's not just something that someone took at a party. It's not just something that a friend gave them. It's not just something that they felt like good about for a few 6 hours when they were 18 years old. Now it's what they're living and dying for. It's what they're waking up to make sure that they get. It's a drug that they can't even maintain. It's costing them the entire lives practically. And that's what sin can do to you. There's people that are having affairs and it can be destroying their entire marriage. There's people that stole and now they're in jail and they can't go and serve God the way that God would give them ever flowing life. It's something that's so difficult. And another thing about sin is that it doesn't have like continuity, it doesn't have life. It always is short term ends, and then it actually makes you grow in like your sin, because today you steal a coin, the next day you're stealing a large sum of money, and then the next day you're stealing a larger sum of money, and you continue and continue and continue and continue, because it's not something that's going to grow. It's not something that is a blessing. It's it's stolen. You hear about so many people having to continuously lead a life of lies because of the first lie that they told, and they're constantly trying to maintain. So sin is just so false and misleading, and it leads you away from God ultimately. But what is most important in all of this that I've learned is that sin doesn't make God love you less. It just takes away from the blessings in your life. It takes away from your gift of life. It takes away from what God wanted to have with you. And that's why you should feel compelled not to sin, because it's not about what is going on. It's not about the situation. It's just the fact that that situation, if you indulge in sin, you're taking away from the highest glory. You're taking away from the highest power that is God. And it's just never going to be worth it. Like, it's never going to be worth it. If you would ask someone today that is addicted to drugs and doesn't know how to get out, is it worth losing their family over? Is it worth losing their house over? Is it worth losing the respect? Is it worth losing the version of themselves that they might have loved in the past? It's never going to be worth it. And so, the most important takeaway from this week is that you can overcome. If you have a drug addiction, you can overcome. There's people that have overcome. There is people that have conquered these things. And then when you're looking at it from a spiritual sense, you're looking at Jesus, who came down to earth and died for us and showed us how to conquer. He showed us how to conquer temptation. He showed us how to conquer sin. He showed us how we can lead a life. He's even conquered death itself. And so I just say that to say that we shouldn't try to live this unsustainable life that isn't even worth it if we want to live in sin. And we should rather live, in happiness and in joyfulness with God and indulge in what God wanted for us. And living in righteousness is that. So that's just my word for today, and I pray that people feel encouraged after listening to this and know that there's hope for them, and that we should all work together to keep trying and to steer ourselves away from sin. And that means, getting away from the channels in which they come through. If that means turning off your phone, turn off your phone. Stop hanging out with certain people, stop hanging out with certain people. Stay away from certain places, but do that. And yeah, so that's my message for today. I wish you guys the best, and thanks for tuning in.